Oi there, I'm Trixie the Golden Witch, out here hunting for prey. The movie from 2022. I'm reviewing it for ASE Presents Yig Studios Vlogust, where I vlog every day in August. I'm out on the prowl, searching for them predators. Now, I've never seen any of the Predator movies. I have listened to commentary tracks of them and watched reviews of them and heard about them over the years. Because, as I said in a recent video, we are living in the franchise era, where everything comes back again and again, is constantly iterated on, especially if it started in the 80s. Anything that was popular in the 80s is never going away. And the Predator is one of those things. Now, even though I know things about Predator, I saw some of Alien vs. Predator. I haven't played any of the video games, but I've seen a lot of reviews of Alien vs. Predator video games. God, wow. It's amazing how much I can know about a franchise that I haven't seen any of. Now, it was very clever of them not to call this movie Predator. They called it Prey. And they centered all of the marketing on the main actress and the fact that it's obviously set like hundreds of years in the past in Native American tribe times when they're like fighting against like regular, lions and shit on the side of the fact that a predator's there. So there's like this survival element. There's like, it's similar to the marketing of like Far Cry Primal or fucking Ark Survival Evolved and all that kind of stuff. All these games about returning back to our human roots, back when we were hunting and gathering and exploring the plains and all that good stuff. Now, I've been out to the west side of America quite a bit. I love it out there. I love seeing the rolling hills and mountains and forests. And now I'm just picturing the imagery from this movie because I know it takes place in like Montana or somewhere around there. And it's all filmed on location. So if you're like me and you just love to look at America, especially the untapped wilderness where you can rarely see imagery like this unless you like really go out of your way off the grid. There's not a lot of places even that are off the grid completely in America in the sense of you can't see any electrical poles anywhere. But they found those locations to shoot this movie in. So a lot of it is just gorgeous nature photography. A lot of it is just kind of basking in the awesomeness of the few places in America that still look like something resembling what they might have hundreds of years ago. Now, in my opinion, this film is pretty much a perfect 7 out of 10. It is the epitome of a film that does what it's setting out to do, nothing more, nothing less, accomplishes it pretty well, and I can't imagine anyone like complaining if they made it through this whole film. Like, if you made it 15 minutes in and you went, okay, this is boring and you don't care, that's fine. But I can't imagine making it to the end of this movie and being like, well, that wasn't what I was hoping for or expected based on the beginning of it. Actually, I think a big part of how Prey accomplishes being likable is that the first half is by far the more boring half, and it doesn't try to set your expectations too high. The characters they have very basic personalities because they're pretty much just surviving. There's not really like a modern style of society through which people would have all these varied, colorful personalities. They're just tribesmen, out there trying to live. And the fact that our main character is a woman who is just as capable of hunting as any of the men, but in this tribe, there is much more of a gender role specificity where they don't really expect her to be out on these hunts, especially the more dangerous stuff, that's going on at the time of the series where they think they're being hunted by a lion. And so, yeah, there's a little bit of a narrative, of a story, just by way of making the main character female, but that's it. Like, that's as much characterization as is really going on with the main characters. It's mostly about watching them try to survive, watching them, deal with being prey or predator, depending on the animal. Earlier on in the film, we see glimpses of the Predator who's got his invisibility on, just kind of demonstrating powers against other predaceous animals. And the implication is that he's like working his way up the food chain, trying to find the apex predator of the earth in order to fight. And among the tribe's people, even then, he's only really interested in fighting whoever is the strongest, which is kind of used in a hilarious way in this movie. Like, the Predator is a computer who cannot, or like just won't attack anything but, you know, what is either a threat or will get him closer to the person he's trying to, like, there's moments where he just doesn't kill the main girl because he doesn't register her as a threat. It's a little cheesy, but I can accept it. It sets up its own mechanics, and it uses them well. But by far the corniest thing in this movie, actually, is that the Predator just doesn't know how his own gun works, because the Predator has a helmet that has this laser sight on it, and it's demonstrated at one point that his bullets will absolutely fire wherever that laser sight is pointing. But if it's not attached to his head, he just doesn't seem to realize. He just doesn't know. He doesn't know that he needs his helmet on to use his gun. And that ends up being like a major part of his undoing. So that is by far the corniest thing that happens in this movie. But again, it sets up the rule. It establishes that the Predator doesn't know how it works, and that's why it's able to be used in the end. So whether it's corny or not, it's still correct in terms of screenwriting, and I think that's where this film really is able to pay off. The whole first half just sets up so that the second half can be a non-stop, insanely violent action scene of Predator cutting his way through group after group of people, leading up to a big final battle with the girl. She builds her own weapons, including like this axe tied to a braided like vine, and you know, Predator ends up with all these crazy weapons. He's got like this arm blade that's like a circular blade that comes out and chops people's heads off, and like every single weapon that we see used in a cool way, we then see subverted or reused in another way that pays off again. So yeah, it's just a movie that's nonstop like setups and payoffs. And when it comes to violent action movies, like how entertaining any one of them is usually depends on how many you've seen. I'm pretty desensitized to seeing incredibly violent action, but if you can come up with a kill I've never seen before, or a really awesome camera angle, or some kind of premise that makes this new and unique, then that's what's going to sell it. And obviously, this being Predator, it can't really be that new and unique. There's been a bunch of Predator movies. Most of the weaponry, most of the stuff that's used to defeat him, like making yourself cold, is old. However, it is done in different ways. It's rethought to be like ancient technology. Okay, how would you lower your body temperature, you know, as a Native American who understands that there's like flowers you can eat that'll do that to you. So there's little newnesses in there that make it feel just unique enough, just different enough to stand out. And again, I think as long as there's like one or two kills that I've never seen before, which this movie had, like I particularly remember the guy getting like bisected by the fucking shield, and then the way that that's subverted by it like getting stuck on a rock later trying to cut the girl's head off is the most memorable scene in the movie for me, just because it's like, new weapon used in a new way. That's like all I really want out of an action movie, to keep it in my mind. So I think this succeeded. It's a perfect 7 out of 10. Did exactly what it needed to do. No extra bells and whistles, nothing too annoying to take you out of the experience. Cool cinematography, shot in a great location. The characters are exactly established enough to have a satisfying fight, and that's all you need. So yeah, I would say Prey is a pretty good movie. You probably already watched it because it had the biggest Hulu premiere of all time, but it's on Hulu. So yeah, I can see why this was such a successful film. I think it's incredibly accessible to anybody who has any interest in this type of action movie. Like, it's hard to hate. My mom would probably like this movie. So yeah, Prey, 7 out of 10. Check it out. And check out the rest of Vlogust. Don't forget that patreon.com/goldenwitchfire is where you can request me to rant about whatever you want for $5 or more. I also have goldenwitch.substack.com, where I post my written articles. You can find links to all kinds of stuff down in the description, such as my hip-hop group Sucker Punch, other podcasts that I appear on, whatever you need. It's down there. Thanks again for watching, and never forget, pray forever.